Okay, I'm back again with part two of the uh, prophetic things that have happened and how this was going to play up to the part of us as African uh, former African slaves. And let's just see where history takes us. We already talked about Hannibal and Hamilcar, his father. They were from Carthage in the northern part of Africa. And they were fighting the Romans, and the Romans were losing and winning, losing, winning, and eventually Rome took over that whole area. And then Rome became a Roman Empire sometime after the Roman Republic, because they were called a Roman Republic first. So in 27 BC to 476 after Christ's death, the Roman Empire was really at its strong point. And the interesting thing about those dreams and those visions is that they came to pass sort of like how the prophets had prophesied. And so now Rome is the big chief ruler at this time. And I want to go back and talk about a couple other battles that happened outside of Hannibal and his father, Hamilcar. So one was called, they're called servile wars. Now, you know the word servile means servitude. And so anytime they say servile war, that means a war waged by slaves against an existing empire. So there were some slaves that rose up against Rome. And one was called the First Servile War. In the First Servile War, we had a man named Eunice. And he was a slave of Sicily. And it was like from 135 to 132 before the Common Era. And evidently he got himself, he basically said he was a prophet and all that, and that he's going to, I guess, deliver his people, but he was overcome and killed, okay? So then that was what you call the First Servile War. Then they had a Second Servile War from 104 to 100 BCE. That was only a 4-year revolt, and that slave name was Athenian. And they said that, okay, so you know what the end of that is. He's annihilated, okay? And then we had a third servile war. And this is the one we often hear about. It's recorded in the Bible. His name was Spartacus. And Spartacus led a very powerful slave revolt against the Roman Empire. And he was creating a lot of damage on that empire. But that empire still was able to subdue him because of traitors. And I think that he was traded out, he was sold out, and he was overcome, and I believe he was hanged in the way that they crucified people, or they did some bad things to him. But anyway, he may have been a gladiator or some kind of fighter before he was a slave. But whatever the case were, you'll see slave revolts happening all throughout history, even before the African struggle. Now, I'm not trying to equate any of these things to be equal with the African slave trade, because of some other things that stand out in our struggle that they don't seem to be present in these other ones. These other ones were like servitudes, or like servants, people that were captured in war, people that lost their land, or people that were rejects. They seem to be the ones that were made into slaves. And I think after so long, you can buy your freedom, or it's not the same kind of slavery that we went through in the United States, where we were, in America, where we were stripped of our tongue and our language and whatever religion. We were stripped of our culture, and We had to be something totally outside of who we were born to be, and we're getting our testicles and stuff cut off and castrated and hanged, just burned at stake, tarred and feathered. And they say they did, a lot of these things because of if a person raped somebody, they would castrate them. But I think they were castrating them even because they were too masculine, or they were too had too much maleness in them, and they wanted to tone them down. So it's just another subject for another day. But anyway, Spartacus he's very powerful. And the other general, the one general that I mentioned in the Punic War was Hannibal. They try to say he's not African. They say he was Phoenician, but Phoenician, if you trace it back, it goes back to Ethiopia. You can trace a lot of this back. I did a paper on this. And they're supposed to be trying to make a movie on Hannibal Barca. And I believe Denzel Washington is supposed to be trying to play that part, but they're having an argument about they didn't want him to be a black general going against Rome in that movie. And, I plainly have accepted that Barca was an African general. And, he was from the continent of Africa. But, there's some people that in history that just don't want to accept that, because those Carthaginians or Carthage people were kicking, they were doing some serious damage to the Roman Empire. They were bringing it to them. So, but when you think about these prophecies that it said that they would not be defeated, that it said that it would fall from its own corruption, these basically are the things that have happened. And even if you want to say that that's not what that interpretation meant, when these things were prophesied by these prophets, they saw, centuries down the road, they saw tomorrow, and if these things were going to happen, then maybe somebody like Spartacus was bound to be defeated. I'm bringing this up so that we can have this as food for thought. Maybe he was bound to be defeated because Rome was not yet to be ceased to exist. So when he rises up, his fate is already sealed. But does that mean he should have just sat idle by and let things happen? Those are the things I want to, put out here to the listeners. Do you think that he should have battled, that he should have left it alone because it was already prophesied? And that kind of bothers me too, that if you were to go that route, then that means you're going to just say, okay, God's in control, and no matter what we do, we're already shown that it's going to happen this way, so we might as well just put up. Well, I think that we have a responsibility during our time and our watch that we should look and oversee our people. They say when the good shepherd sees the wolf coming, he protects the sheep, even if he gives his life for a sheep. So there's certain things that may be prophesied, but you still have a role to play. And maybe it could be delayed. Maybe it's conditional. It could be delayed, but it's probably still going to come to pass. So we'll get into some things like that up ahead. So anyway, Spartacus and Hannibal gave them a good run for their money. And these guys fought like gallant soldiers. And they fought like soldiers as opposed to fight and try to get themselves out of bondage. And, so I thought that was pretty interesting to bring up. And okay, so we have three major slave revolts called the Servile Wars 1, 2, and 3, and we have the Punic Wars between Africa and Rome, the first, second, and third. And let me make sure there was a third. Yeah. Okay, so that's basically what I wanted to go over, and so the question is, do we have a responsibility as slaves to try to get ourselves out of slavery? Of course we do. But if it's prophesied certain things are going to happen, what is our real position? Is there a way that we can survive in that situation like that, or do we try to lay low? Do we just go into prayer and let things happen? So, as I say a few minutes ago, I think that when you're put in a situation and the wolf comes, you need to be the good shepherd at that time. Even maybe you remember I said you can win some battles, you can lose some battles and win the war. So they said eventually the believers are going to be the overcomers in the end. And all these other kingdoms are going to be subdued. And so we have that promise, or we have that hope. And then we also want to be able to, like say for instance, when Jesus was born, and he was born, and then Herod sent out this decree to kill all the male children 2 years and under, because he wanted to kill this future king that was supposed to be the king of Israel or whatever. And an angel appeared to Joseph and Mary and told Joseph to run to Egypt and hide because they seek to kill the child. Okay, now, that's like a battle or a trial. And you get some divine intervention. Somebody's telling you to go because they're going to try to kill you. Here's another example. Apostle Paul was doing some ministry out in different parts of the land, going out from Jerusalem, and there were a couple of times that they sought to kill him, and people would come and try to help him escape, and he would get some kind of a revelation, and then he was able to escape. So going back to the thing, what do we do when things are prophesied that they're going to be this way? What is our position? I think God will give us a way out, or a way to escape, just like he did with the baby Jesus when he sent the angel to tell him to run to Egypt, or just like he told Paul and got Paul out of, they let Paul down in a basket, I believe, on the side of a building, and he ran. There's certain people who will help you get out of there. You got Harriet Tubman during the slave in America during slavery that was going through the Underground Railroad. Even though slavery hadn't ended, there was still things happening to where when you were really trying to do God's will and you really were trying to care about your people, God had to give you some kind of passageway during that time. Whereas some of the other people got the strongest sting of it because they probably were just placaters. They probably just totally gave into that system. So I think that God makes a way to some degree in those type of situations. There's some men that are right now incarcerated in prison. Some of you may be in there for something that you did not do, or something that was put on you that you couldn't control. And God has to try to see you through that, and not necessarily get you out of it, but try to see that you make it through it. Sort of like Joseph, he's in jail. There was a dream that he had that his brothers would one day bow down to him, but he spent about 12 years in prison over some other situation unrelated, and he was sold into slavery before he went to prison. So that dream seemed like it would have never come to pass, but it still came to pass. They ended up bowing down to this man. His brothers and stuff ended up bowing down to him years down the road after he came through all of that. So I'm saying God said his word will go out from him and do whatever he wants it to accomplish, and will not return to him void. So when God puts something in motion, no matter what man does to offset it or try to disrupt it, his overall prophetic call and the way things are going to be eventually is going to happen the way it was foretold and the way it was prophesied to be. So the message to you Africans, We'll probably go to part 2 for this, but keep your mind and heart turned toward God. You keep your people looking out for their best interests. Don't sell them out, and don't sell out your God. Don't sell out your people. We got to close here. Peace, love. God bless you.